Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Play On podcast. This episode is the football edition. I have Luke here with me to look back at all the games which took place over the weekend. Luke, the cream is seeming to rise to the top. A lot of the Division 2, Division 1 teams making statements over the weekend, particularly the Meath-Longford results, which we'll get to. But a lot of the big teams now are starting to come through.
Yeah, it's been a kind of predictable start to championship. The expected teams, the teams that are expected to win mostly, like they're coming through all the challenges really. And yeah, we're kind of yet to stumble across a surprise just yet. But I suppose that sets it up nicely for the rest of the year. I suppose that's what you can say about how it's gone so far. I suppose. If you're curious what you think of it.
Yeah, well, one thing that did surprise me was the first game that we're going to look at, Dublin-Wexford. Not the fact that Dublin won the game. I think everybody, including Wexford fans, knew that Dublin were going to win this game. It was a bit of a lacklustre performance from Dublin. 15 points to 7 they win by. Wexford, believe it or not, only the second team in Leinster to come within 10 points of Dublin since 2013 when Jim Gavin took over, which is crazy and shows the difference between Dublin and the rest of the teams in Leinster. But, Wexford, they showed up some holes in Dublin's game. Wexford had some massive performances. Michael Furlong was fantastic for Wexford. John Tubbert's point as well, very good interplay between himself and Kevin O'Grady. They kind of showed up Dublin a little bit. Dublin looked a bit rusty. I just think, that wasn't the most convincing Dublin performance I've seen, and they'd want to step up now before they come on to the bigger teams. I don't think we can read into it too much because of, it's the way that Dublin have started championships in previous years. Carlow, of course, we went down to Carlow and we, snuck a little victory there and then went on to win the All-Ireland that year. It's kind of how we start championships. But the level of performance will need to jump up pretty quickly, to be honest, because, next up we're playing against Meath and they smashed Longford. So, yeah, the performance will need to pick up pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, there's been a bit of talk that it looked like the performance of the weekend kind of suggests that Dublin are kind of in training for an All-Ireland semi-final already, really. But, it's the team doesn't really provoke the same level of fear, I don't think, as previous years. Kind of, you're looking at the forward line, and all of a sudden, it's not quite as strong as it's traditionally been since 2013, even as well. And kind of a lot of new faces kind of started to work their way into the team, and it's. I don't think teams will be quite as fearful of Dublin as they have been in previous years. And then obviously, look, the game of the weekend was just completely overshadowed by the Stephen Cluxton story, I suppose, as well. So yeah, it's kind of a strange enough period for the Dublin camp, but I suppose it kind of sets up what was kind of considered to be or would have been a one-way kind of match kind of against Meath. But all of a sudden now, I think people are kind of more interested in that and will be keeping a closer eye on it now because of kind of the unconvincing nature of Dublin's win at the weekend.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned there Stephen Cluxton. He's, quote, stepped away from the Dublin panel for the time being. Now, there's only 8 weeks until the championship year is finished. So how much time away is he really going to ask for? It definitely is a surprising one. I've said now a week previous, I think Stephen Cluxton's the type of guy that his retirement now, he's achieved so much in the game that when he retires, the panic and the appreciation and all these emotions are going to come at Stephen Cluxton and everyone involved really with Dublin. Stephen Cluxton doesn't do emotions. He doesn't do getting caught up in the moment. And I feel like he's the type of player that wouldn't want such a big deal made about his retirement. And I feel like he will preferably kind of quietly slip away into the shadows, just like he did during the celebrations when Dublin finally won that All-Ireland in 2011.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, he's the type of player that you wouldn't expect him to be releasing a statement saying he's retiring, though. And it's, the story's kind of been building a bit of legs. And then, you'd hear things during the week where people that are kind of connected, where they're becoming less and less kind of confident about him coming back at all. So it's, I think there's nearly a kind of sense that at this stage that Cluxton, that the chance there is that he won't be playing this year, and it's Yeah, it's a bit of a puzzler because normally we have a guaranteed kind of statement saying that a player won't be playing this year. They've either opted out or that they've retired. But we're kind of bit in the dark on this one, so it'll be curious how it goes on for the year. And yeah, I don't know, maybe Dublin could do with it being kind of a definite statement to kind of so in order to answer some questions that people have, because I know it's got an awful lot of media coverage over the weekend, questions about what's coming next. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, definitely. But moving away from clubs now, moving back to the Dublin team themselves, there were some interesting selections. Brian Howard, of course, was centre half back. Peadar O'Cofaigh-Byrne came in once again. He looks like he's going to play, a bigger part this year than he's ever played for Dublin. Of course, Sean McMahon started in the corner, which we predicted. Ryan Baskell was a late starter in corner forward instead of his brother Colm. But Colm did come on and got himself a nice score. There were some interesting starters there. We said that we thought O'Cofaigh-Byrne and Sean McMahon would play parts in this year's championship, and they've started the opening game. So maybe that is something that's on the horizon for Dublin.
Yeah, I do think that O'Cofaigh-Byrne and Sean McMahon are going to be two huge parts, especially considering Robbie McDade went off injured as well. So there's places in defence and midfield kind of to be won. Like McCarthy's going to have to play halfback, so there is one spot. And we still not signed John Small as well. He did his hamstring there at the end of the league. So look, the halfback line, two of the spots from last year need to be filled. There's no McCaffrey obviously as well. Still, there was no sign of Merchant as well. So it's like there's definitely two spots in our half-back line, and it doesn't look as dominant as it's been in previous years too. McMahon seems to have that spot in cornerback kind of sewed up a little bit as well. But yeah, it was an interesting point you make about the Ryan Basquel one. I don't think anyone was expecting that. He hadn't had much game time in the league as well, and didn't really work. He was taken off at half time, I suppose, and yeah, I suppose since Desi's came in, there's been a kind of a few of these kind of decisions of fellas that were kind of elevated into starting team kind of from nowhere really, and it hasn't really worked a whole lot of time. So it's an interesting one, but it's a little bit of a concern for Dublin because I think if you look at that forward line at the weekend, like it would definitely not provoke the same level of fear as traditional, I suppose, Dublin forward lines have, and yeah, it was a kind of an opposite where Meath beat Longford by a scoreline that Dublin have been beating teams in Leinster with, whereas Dublin kind of look very, very laboured getting over the line against Wexford.
Yeah, definitely. Hugely for Dublin, though, Dean Rock, came on, got a trademark score, which kind of, saw Dublin, home a little bit. But yeah, no, Dublin, they get the job done. Now they go to play against Meath. I feel like this is the game where Dublin will kind of come to life and they will put Meath away, in my opinion. But for Wexford, they can be very proud. Fantastic performance by them. Michael Furlong, as I've mentioned, was really good. John Tubrick played very well. Some very eye-catching scores. One in particular from Dara Shanley. He came off the bench, looked very impressive. He hit 2 points, very quickly. And yeah, for a Division 4 team, who lost to Carlow at the start of the year, the whole fiasco there with Paul Galvin, coming in as previous and he just walked away. Shane Roach seems like a very likeable manager, to be honest. And he seems to have steadied the ship a little bit and now, putting up a good performance, holding Dublin to within 10 points, as I've mentioned, only the second side to do it since Jim Gavin took the reins. It's, a very proud performance by them today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think they, well, like the fact that they got the closest that anyone's got to Dublin in a long, long time is like it has to stand for them. Like you already talked about, like the Donald Shanley score at the end was as good a score you're ever going to see. So, yeah, there plenty positives to take there. Just unfortunate for them that their season's done now. Without they play Dublin in their second championship game, and then that's just the end of it. So, yeah, look, I think it's. That's kind of one of the big talking points from the weekend, I think, was that a lot of people are very frustrated. The teams could be training for so long, come up against one of the Division 1 powerhouses, and then their season is done. So hopefully next year, anyway, we get back to a stage where the qualifiers are back in and there's a bit more fair play for the teams that are looking to develop.
Yeah, definitely, because there has to be a roadmap for these teams to eventually compete. And, 2 championship games in the season just isn't going to cut it, to be honest, for Wexford to close the gap that has opened hugely from when they should have won the Leinster title, obviously 10 years ago.
And
So
absolutely, and well, if you look at a really kind of spirited performance against Dublin, where they got obviously they're still beaten by 8 points, but they pushed them for long parts of the game, and Dublin never pulled away in that game. They could take huge confidence from that, and then imagine that they could be applying that to a qualifier next week against a team that they'd be traditionally on a level kind of surface with. Imagine the confidence going into that game. So it's a real pity from their perspective that they can't try and build on this, and that they have to wait until National League probably next spring.
yeah, definitely. And it's a shame. But it will be a fascinating game to watch because obviously Meath look pretty good. We'll get onto them. Dublin look pretty lackluster, but I'm fully expecting Dublin to, wake up and get back onto full form for this game. So, guys, that is our review of the Dublin versus Wexford game. We will come back with more.